We want to graph these parabolas and identify these important pieces. What is the easiest thing up here to identify with this parabola? Direction is what? It is up. Why? Because the x squared is positive. What's the next easiest thing to identify? And the y-intercept is the constant on the end, so it's -1. We don't want to be getting those wrong on the test, folks, okay? So we don't want to be getting those wrong on the test. So we've got up and we've got -1. To find the vertex, I use this equation of -b divided by twice the a value. -b divided by twice the a value. So -b is going to be opposite whatever you see in front of the x. So instead of a -1, it's a +1. Divided by 2 times the number in front of x squared is 1, so I get a half. Now I know that you guys probably didn't like that there's a fraction, okay? But I'm going to show you how to navigate through that. If you have a calculator, take it out. If you don't have a calculator, I don't know how you're going to operate through this piece other than maybe doing it by hand. But I'm going to type in 1/2. And wherever I have an x, I just put a parenthesis around it. So I have 1/2 squared. I have minus parentheses 1/2. And then I have a -1. So you can see I have the same thing as what I have typed here, x squared minus x minus 1. Just instead of an x, I put a 1/2. So if you have a calculator like this, or if you have a calculator like this, this may do order of operations as well, especially the Texas Instruments one. Your phones do not do order of operations. So you'll have to compute each part and then put it together. But it looks like in this situation, I come out with -1.25. I'm going to start graphing this. I'm going to plot 1, 2, 3. And so I'm going to plot the 1/2 and then down 1.25. The axis of symmetry is an imaginary line that divides the parabola in half. What do I write for the axis of symmetry? It is always x equals the x value of your vertex. And please write x equals 1/2 and not just 1/2, because it's not a number, it's an equation for a line, and x equals 1/2 is that equation for the line. Finally, I have the x-intercepts. Now what I do is I take my function and I set it equal to 0. 0 equals x squared minus x minus 1. On Friday, we looked at examples that all factored. This does not factor. If it doesn't factor, then what do we use instead? So the Q, quadratic formula. The quadratic formula is -b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all divided by 2a. We practiced that before to try to set you up to have success here. So -b is +1 plus or minus the square root of. I square the b value to get 1 minus 4 times a is 1 and c is -1. All divided by twice the a value. I have 2 negative signs underneath the square root, so I will add those together. I get 1 plus or minus the root of 5 over 2. You'll be asked to write your answer both in simplest radical form as well as a decimal. So watch how I do this. X-intercepts 1 plus or minus the root of 5 divided by 2. That's simplest radical form. I'm now going to calculate the decimals. I'm going to use my calculator, and I do 1 plus the root of 5. Whoop. I press enter, and then I'm going to divide that by 2, and I get 1.61. I'm going to go back here, and now I'm going to do 1 minus the square root of 5. And then I will take that and divide it by 2. And I get negative 0.61. I will plot these on the x-axis, 1.61 and negative 0.61. Notice it also went through the y-axis at a value of negative 1. This gives me a few points to be able to sketch my parabola. And I'm done. So if it doesn't factor, it's definitely a little bit more work. Okay, working with the person next to you or on your own, I want you to see if you could come up with the direction, the y-intercept, and the vertex. Okay, pause there so we could go over them together. Take about 2 minutes. See if you can come up with those on your own. Might need to use your calculator on one. Warren Raleigh's birthday today. Not your birthday. Jacob, your Wolverines play the Buckeyes this weekend. Mm-hmm. Do you think they have any chance? You do? Good for you for believing. All right, wherever you're at, hopefully you got the direction is down. The y-intercept is positive 3. And when I did negative b divided by twice a value, I got negative 3 halves or negative 1.5. Any question how I came up with any of those? So then I'm going to go to my calculator and I'm going to type that in. Can you help me out? It's a 3 minus, is it 3 times x? Is that what it says in the problem? 3 minus 3 times negative 3 halves, so negative 3 divided by 2. And then it's minus again, isn't it? Minus negative 3 halves squared. So I just type it in just like that. And as I press enter, it tells me 5.25. Remember that negative 3 halves is the same thing as negative 1.5. So that's going to be my vertex. So I'm going to plot that. I'm going to make a 6 by 6 graph. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I plot negative 1.5 and positive 5.25. My vertical line divides this exactly in half, and that equation is always x equals the x value of the vertex. So the last piece that we need to find is the x-intercepts. We take our parabola, we set it equal to 0. Unlike the other ones, this doesn't factor. And if it doesn't factor, we have to use a quadratic formula. Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared is 9 minus 4. A is negative 1 and c is 3. Divided by twice the a value. Notice that a is negative 1, so I have a negative 2 in the bottom. I have two subtraction signs or negative signs underneath the square root, and so it will add. I have 3 plus or minus the square root of 9 plus 12 is 21. That is my simplest radical form, 3 plus or minus the root of 21 over negative 2. But I don't know how to plot those. So in order to figure out how to plot those, I will put them into my calculator and come up with my decimals. 3 plus the root of 21, enter, and then I divide by negative 2. And I get negative 3.79. Now I'll calculate the other part, and this time I'm going to type it all together. Watch the difference here. I will do parentheses 3 minus the square root of 21, and then divide by negative 2. So if you're going to do it all in one step, you have to put the top in parentheses, so it takes 3 minus the square root of 21. Otherwise, it would only be dividing the square root of 21 by negative 2. And I get 0.79. That's enough information to now plot negative 1, 2, 3.79 and positive 0.79. Y-intercept of positive 3. I think we have enough information to be able to sketch a reasonable graph. So, it's a problem that doesn't just take a minute, it takes a little bit of time. If you take out your homework, you see Ellie has done a good job working on her odd problems so far. So on this worksheet, the odds, they all factor, and that's what we worked on Friday. The evens, you need to use the quadratic formula, and that's what you're doing today. Okay, so now we'll wrap that off for you, so you can kind of check your work and see where you're at. Tomorrow you'll have a chance to ask questions if you needed to. You got about 20 minutes to be able to ask questions now, but I will have your study guide and things ready to go for you tomorrow.